In this video, we're going to review the 3.6 Jeep engine. This engine was a joint effort between Mercedes and Chrysler. Mercedes owned Chrysler from 1998 to 2008. Now it's got common issues. We're going to kind of talk about them really quick. Left cylinder head is the first one. The left cylinder head was a problem from day one. It was the 2011 to 2013 mostly affected. And the issue was that you would have a misfire at idle, you would have a shaky idle. It just had a check engine light. Early on, it was before 50,000 miles on some of them. We first started seeing them on rental vehicles, law enforcement vehicles that work pretty hard. Those are kind of the testing grounds for a lot of vehicles. You really start to see the weak points when you sell a car to a fleet company. But the thing that you need to watch out for is if it's a 2011 to 2013 Wrangler, for example, you need to look at the Julian date on the left cylinder head, and I'm going to circle it right here. So the Julian date is going to be kind of hard to read, especially if there's some oxidation, but example of the Julian date on the left head in the red there is 2061. So that would be the 206th day of 2011. Any Julian date ending in 1 or 2 and some 3s, you need to be worried about that left cylinder head being an issue if it hasn't been replaced already. It has a warranty extension that was 10-year and I think 100,000 mile extension, but some of those are starting to expire. So if you're looking to buy any Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram with the 2011 or 13 model year in that range, you definitely need to look at the Julian date on the left head. Always have your local dealership inspect your vehicle. It's always a great idea. They'll do it for not much money. And you're going to have an idea, the history of the vehicle. If recalls are done, they may have taken it to the dealership in the past. Maybe they stopped taking it there. That's a good reason to ask for a printout of this stuff. And it's well worth the money. So dealerships, can be your best friend sometimes. So as far as the cause of the left cylinder head issue, it relates to a exhaust guide wear issue. The exhaust guide wears, and then the valve seat starts wearing kind of like an egg shape, and you'll get leaky exhaust valves that cause a really shaky idle and misfire codes, check engine light, fail smog. So this was such an issue that they redesigned the head pretty early on in the start of this engine design and being put in all the vehicles. So about 2013 is when they started to figure out what was causing the issue in their minds, and it seemed to be okay. We hadn't really done that many head replacements after 2013. There has been some, not nearly as problematic. So just keep in mind that you've got the potential of your exhaust valve guides wearing, causing misfires and check engine lights if it's pre-2013. 2014, 2015, 2016, there's been a few that have had left head issues with the same concern, but not very common compared to the 11 to 13 model year. Right now in this picture, you're seeing the front of the left cylinder head. Now this is 2 bolts there. The 2 bolts like to loosen up. It'll cause low oil pressure codes like P06DD, maybe some variable valve timing codes, P0344 for example, and some other stuff. It can cause wear as well. And some people think it could contribute to the rocker arm wear, but I'm not too sure on that. So the engine itself, like I was saying, it's a Mercedes Chrysler joint design. It's a big improvement over Chrysler's other 6 cylinders in the past. Here's it real quick. This is what the actual valves look like. The smaller ones are the exhaust valves on that left head. The different tone valves, they tend to lighten up when they start to burn up because of guide wear. So what happens is the guide wears, now the valve is rocking, and normally a valve will spin on the seat. Well, it stops spinning and it starts rocking side to side when the guide wears, and your valve gets up to 1,000 or 2,000 degrees or something like that. It's trying to transfer heat from the head of the valve because combustion just occurred in the cylinder, and that heat has to transfer to the coolant jacket. Well, to do that, the heat absorbs into the valve. That round area you see is a valve, and then it gets moved, transferred. The heat is transferred to the valve seat, and then the seat behind that is a casting aluminum. So the heat travels to that, and then it goes to the coolant that's running through this left cylinder head. Now, when the seat on any engine starts to wear unevenly, you're going to get a lot less heat transfer because now only parts of the valve are transferring heat. This is what can burn up valves. Now, these are really good valves because I've never seen one burn up. But I've seen older engines, like older Toyota engines, that burnt the valves, melted the valves because the seats actually weren't transferring heat. And that could just be from sticky valves. That's why you want to address sticky valves on like Volkswagens pretty early on. Mazda, anything direct injected turbocharged, really prone to valve sticking, you should really take care of that because you don't want to burn your valves up. Because if they're not seating correctly, they're not transferring enough heat, so just be aware. Now, that head gasket you see off to the right, pretty good design. I've seen cylinder heads loose after replacement. The head bolts are never torqued, and the head gasket held it strong for quite a while. This is a picture of the guide wear causing the valve seat with the valves out to be not round anymore. It should be a really thin round circle that you see, and you see it on the top edge, that thin area that's shiny. That's normal valve seat wear. Now, the bottom, it's really knocked out. And what was going on is the guide wore, and it started moving that exhaust valve to the left, and then it only sealed about 30% of the surface area. So that's going to cause exhaust gas to get sucked back in, and also compression to be lost. So you're going to have a shaky idle, and then you're going to have a misfire, stuff like that. And it's cylinder 2, 4, or 6 on the left side. It doesn't matter. That left head, it runs hotter, and it actually, I think, is one of the reasons it's only on the left head, because the right head's a real similar design. It's not symmetrical, but it's similar. And though guys have said, yeah, I've had a right head fill, I mean, it's way, way more common on the left cylinder head. They never did an extension on the right cylinder head. And I don't think they extended the 3.2 Pentastar in the Cherokee. I feel like that one was never extended. So, and there has been a couple 3.2s that have filled, but there's been all kinds of thoughts about what's causing that to happen, and they must have figured it out because it's gotten a lot better. So, I'm not sure what was the cause on that, but so the next issue that needs to be looked out for in the Pentastar engine is actually the tick. Now, the tick on a Pentastar engine, they don't have exhaust gaskets. They don't have exhaust manifolds. They don't have big exhaust gaskets. The manifold's cast in the aluminum head. So really, even I've seen the exhaust manifold, exhaust pipe that goes to the head be loose, and even that wasn't really a tick. So if it was a Hemi ticking, probably a worn out lifter, or more likely that tick on a Hemi would be an exhaust manifold cracked. But that type of stuff, when you have exhaust leak causing a tick, it's going to be way better when it warms up. In this case, the tick gets louder when it warms up. It's because the oil is actually thinning out, and then it's more noticeable. So the cause of the tick, usually on a Pentastar, is like you see right here. It's actually the rocker follower needle bearings disintegrated, and there's fewer of them in there. And so sometimes it moves up and down, and it causes a tick because now you have a gap between the valve and the follower tip. And so it ticks because it's slamming up and down, which isn't good for the valve. It's not good for your valve train. I've never seen it cause a valve to bend or anything like that, or shorten the valve height, but definitely can eat into your camshaft. Now, there's, recommendation to replace all 24 rockers on both banks and all lifters. Not a bad idea if you're going to keep it, but I've seen plenty of people just do the one that is failed and just kind of chance it. So hey, there's no exact, one area that the rockers wear. It can be anywhere, left head, right head, it really doesn't matter. And it's been an issue all the way up to 2018 or so. Now, around that time, 2018, they upgraded the Pentastar engine. Pentastar engine, called a Pug engine, was actually, they added variable valve lift, they increased the compression, they made a bunch of changes to it internally, similar to the Cummins engine. It looks the same on the outside, but that when they upgraded the Cummins diesel engine, that was a big change inside. Now, on this this situation, the lack of maintenance is not going to help the situation. So make sure you're getting high quality, correct viscosity oil in the Pentastar 3.6 engine to help prevent the tick. Also, make sure your oil galley plug bolts are tight. Now, those are in the video with the left head, those two bolts we talked about. If those loosen up, it could also contribute to rocker arm needle bearing failure. This is the last common issue, in my opinion, and that's the oil filter assembly. The 2011 was the start of the Pentastar engine, and these plugs on the front, those two little plugs, are cast plastic, melted. They can leak oil, quite common. Also the O-rings, like you see on that round pipe, and that's the inlet, up to 90 psi of oil pressure, and all it has is one O-ring that goes in the aluminum block. That can leak oil if it hardens up over time. The housing can crack if the filter was over torqued. You have other sills on the bottom that you don't see. There's on the outlet side for the oil pressure that can leak oil. And you'll see oil when you look down in there in the valley of the engine. It'll eventually drain back down across the top of the transmission, down near the oil pan, look like a rear main seal leak. It can saturate the whole underside of the car. It can also cause the engines to fail and disintegrate quickly because there's no oil at that point after driving too long. But there is a oil pressure gauge on that back of that oil filter assembly, or I'm sorry, oil pressure sender that goes to a gauge on the dash, but not too many people are going to look at that. The other thing is you may not get an oil light or any warning light on your vehicle if you run dangerously low on engine oil. So just try and keep an eye on your oil level. Keep an eye out for leaks. If you're looking to buy one, make sure there's not oil around that filter housing. Now, sometimes it's from spilt oil filter drainage when it was changed, but yeah, you shouldn't see oil coming on the back of the engine down the bell housing of the transmission. If you see that, that's a bad sign. You got to pull the intake manifolds, and it's a couple-hour job for someone that does it every day. If you're trying to do that, replace that oil filter housing yourself, you're talking 4 or 5 hours and buying special sockets and stuff like that. But anyways, it's not an easy job, so keep an eye out for that. But overall, this engine is not a bad engine. Chrysler and Mercedes, I think they worked pretty hard to research and test this engine before it went to the public. Example of the engines before in the Dodge Charger were the 3.5 timing belt engine, overhead cam, and then the 2.7, which was dual overhead cam, I believe, and it was really problematic. It had a lot of issues as far as the water pump being inside the engine, like the Ford 3.5 engines, I think it is. Having a water pump inside the engine, they do make weep holes to actually drain out to the outside of the engine, but the gasket fails or that pump shaft seal fails, it's going coolant, it's going right into your engine oil, and you're ruining your engine at that point. And that was something that really made the Chrysler look bad with the 2.7 liter. And the 3.5 liter was an engine that wasn't really that bad of an engine. I think they had some valve issues, occasional head gasket issue. It was a paper head gasket. It was an aluminum block. Aluminum head, and I want to say aluminum block. I can't remember at this point, but the 3.5 engine was not nearly as great a design as this one. So yeah, it has issues. And those issues are not too uncommon for a domestic car company. You know, you're starting to see Ford and GM have a lot of issues with their high performance modern 6-cylinder engines. But overall, I think I'd, maybe choose this engine just because it's a lot easier to work on in the vehicle. Some of these engines are sandwiched in so tight, the guys are having to drop the whole engine out or pull the engine from the top to work on some of the stuff. So, yeah, if you're gonna buy any modern vehicle, I almost advise getting a 4-cylinder, even if it's a turbocharged engine, just to possibly help out on some repair costs because they're really getting tight. But hope you enjoyed the video.